going to open up my book here. I'll be reading a bit from Federalist 1 as we go. If you dislike the way this video comes off, if it's distracting for me to read in my book, please let me know in the comment section. I'll make some changes. If you follow along in your own copy of Federalist 1, you'll notice that each Federalist paper begins with the number. It'll say Federalist number 1 or 2 or whatever. And then it'll give you the topic of that particular paper. For the first Federalist paper, it says General Introduction. And then it'll give you the newspaper that it appeared in and the date and who the supposed author is. All of the Federalist papers were written under the pseudonym Publius. So our best guess is that it was, which one it was as far as if it was Hamilton, Madison, or Jay. And then it also has the salutation to the people of the state of New York. So Federalist 1, here we go. Federalist number 1, General Introduction for the Independent Journal, Saturday, October 27th, 1787. Hamilton, to the people of the state of New York. Now this is a great opening. Here it goes. After an unequivocal experience of the inefficiency of the subsisting federal government, you are called upon to deliberate on a new Constitution for the United States of America. The subject speaks its own importance, comprehending in its consequences nothing less than the existence of the Union, the safety and welfare of the parts of which it is composed, the fate of an empire in many respects the most interesting in the world. It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country, by their conduct and example, to decide the important question, whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. If there be any truth in the remark, the crisis at which we are arrived may with propriety be regarded as the era in which that decision is to be made. And a wrong election on the part we shall act may, in this view, deserve to be considered as the general misfortune of mankind. And this goes again to the idea that I talked about when I did my little book listing. Thomas Paine, when he wrote Common Sense, put forth this idea that the eyes of the world were on the American people. That revolutionary mindset that he created in Common Sense. The eyes of the world were watching the revolutionaries to see if their revolution was legitimate, if the cause that they had was blessed, and if they were going to be able to make anything out of the country that they broke off from, that they broke away from the British monarchy. So again, here we go. This is a question for all mankind being posed here by Hamilton. And the big question, are they going to be able to deliberate and create a system of government that is good and satisfying to the people? Or is all of humanity doomed to live under might makes right? Whoever came out on top in this struggle is the one who wins, and we're all subject to the arbitrary whims of their government. So, let's see here. Hamilton, I'm not going to read the whole paper, obviously. Hamilton goes on to talk about the opponents to the Constitution. And he says that they're mostly men who have interest in keeping things as they are, which is not really kosher. Others are simply mistaken about the Constitution. And he encourages all parties to moderation because, for in politics as in religion, it is equally absurd to claim at making proselytes by fire and sword. Heresies in either can rarely be cured by persecution. So he's hoping that in the spirit of brotherhood, we take it easy on each other. But Hamilton knows A torrent of angry and malignant passions will be let loose. To judge from the conduct of the opposite parties, we shall be led to conclude that they will mutually hope to evince the justness of their opinions and to increase the number of their converts by the loudness of their declamations and the bitterness of their invectives. An enlightened zeal for the energy and efficiency of government will be stigmatized as the offspring of a temper fond of despotic power and hostile to the principles of liberty. I just want to stop here for just a moment. This idea that he's talking about, a zeal for the energy of government, we can trace this back to the Declaration of Independence. And if the revolutionaries agreed that the Declaration of Independence basically summed up what they wanted in government, they would have to agree that governments are set up to protect the rights of man bestowed on him by his creator under the natural law. So, resuming, an over-scrupulous jealousy of danger to the rights of the people, which is more commonly the fault of the head than of the heart, will be represented as mere pretense and artifice, the stale bait for popularity at the expense of the public good. It will be forgotten, on the one hand, that jealousy is the usual concomitant of love, and that noble enthusiasm of liberty is apt to be infected with a spirit of narrow and illiberal distrust. On the other hand, it will be equally forgotten that the vigor of government is essential to the security of liberty, that in the contemplation of a sound and well-informed judgment, their interest can never be separated, and that a dangerous ambition more often lurks behind the specious mask of zeal for the rights of the people than under the forbidden appearance of zeal for the firmness and efficiency of government. History will teach us that the former has been found a much more certain road to the introduction of despotism than the latter, and that of those men who have overturned the liberties of republics, the greatest number have begun their career by paying an obsequious court to the people, commencing demagogues and ending tyrants. Now, let's just get really specific about the definition of demagogue, because chances are you've heard the word used, but you never looked specifically at what a demagogue is. And with my series on the Federalist Papers, and in my own studies of the Federalist Papers, I found that it's vitally important to be very specific, to get as clear a picture of what someone is talking about as possible. So, the definition of a demagogue is a political leader who seeks support by appealing to popular desires and prejudices, rather than by using rational argument. Chances are you've heard a demagogue or two in your life. Let's see. So Hamilton then goes on to say that he is openly confessing a favoring of the Constitution. He really wants people to pass this. He really likes the Constitution. He really wants people to ratify it. But he urges them to seek the truth rather than be swayed by demagogues, basically. And he tells everyone that in these papers, and keep in mind, these papers are not written under Hamilton's actual name. They're written under the pseudonym Publius. So even though it's not just Hamilton that's writing these papers, it's Hamilton, Madison, and Jay. The speakers in the papers refer to themselves as a singular I. Anyway, so Hamilton tells everyone that he's going to be discussing the following topics in these letters that he's going to write. He says, I propose in a series of papers to discuss the following interesting particulars: the utility of the Union to your political prosperity, the insufficiency of the present Confederation to preserve that Union, the necessity of a government at least equally energetic with the one proposed to the attainment of this object, the conformity of the proposed Constitution to the true principles of republican government, its analogy to your own state constitution, and lastly, the additional security which its adoption will afford to the preservation of that species of government, to liberty, and to property. Then he goes on to say this. In the progress of this discussion, I shall endeavor to give a satisfactory answer to all the objections which shall have made their appearance that may seem to have any claim on your attention. It may perhaps be thought superfluous to offer arguments to prove the utility of the Union, a point, no doubt, deeply engraved on the hearts of the great body of the people in every state, and one which it may be imagined has no adversaries. But the fact is that we already hear it whispered in the private circles of those who oppose the new Constitution, that the 13 states are of too great extent for any general system, and that we must of necessity resort to separate confederacies of distinct portions of the whole. This doctrine will, in all probability, be gradually propagated, till it has votaries enough to countenance an open avowal of it. For nothing can be more evident to those who are able to take an enlarged view of the subject, that the alternative of an adoption of the new Constitution or a dismemberment of the Union. It will therefore be of use to begin by examining the advantages of that union, the certain evils, and the probable dangers to which every state will be exposed from its dissolution. This shall accordingly constitute the subject of my next address. So there you have it. We made it through Federalist 1. Not a whole lot of content there, but it does set you up for what's going to be going on. Federalist number 2 is written by John Jay, and it is entitled Concerning Dangers from Foreign Force and Influence. And I really enjoy John Jay's perspective on sort of international politics. He had been a delegate for the colonies, and so he really understood that nations are jealously pursuing their own interests. And it's really going to open up our perspective on world politics. So I hope you'll join me next time when we take on Federalist number 2 from John Jay. I absolutely love these Federalist papers. I find them fascinating. I hope you do too. So remember, until next time, in a free society, you rule. Thanks a lot and have a great day.